Hi, Yuri. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. So, hi, everybody. I'm here today with Uriell Carlson, who we actually met through, so we have some mutual friends, and we're both kind of in the wellness world on different ends of the spectrum. Yuri is um, are you a registered dietitian? Is that
Hmm.
officially your title?
Yep.
Yes. And so she's going to tell you a little bit more about what she does, but we got introduced by some friends when I was starting my business and just kind of connected about the wellness world, and we both love mountain biking. So we're going to nerd out on that for a little bit. So any of you who are out there who are bikers, you can nerd out with us a little bit as we talk about that later. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Yuri, because you know more about you than I do, obviously.
Okay.
So I'm going to let you just tell everybody who you are and what you do and kind of like what your specialty is.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, yeah, my name is Yuri or Uriell Carlson. I'm based in Breckenridge, Colorado, and I have had a practice here called Inner Wild Nutrition for a little over 5 years now. And I work primarily with really just active humans, anyone that's active on a regular basis. I try to, the word athlete is kind of this careful thing that we have to tread on because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people come to me and they don't actually define themselves as an athlete, but then they tell me about the triathlon they're training for. They tell me about the fact that they exercise 5 to 6 days a week, or they tell me that they're, like doing yoga 3 days a week and then they're running 2 days a week and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, your needs are different. So I consider you an athlete, but that's something we can get into later if we want to. So I work with active humans of all levels and I help them figure out how to use primarily real food to improve their performance, optimize their body composition, and just help them kind of figure out how to eat to just support everything they do on a daily basis, whether it's performance specific or just day to day, like not having an energy crash at 2 p.m. in the afternoon every single day, things like that. So I come from a background where I grew up on an organic farm in Vermont and have just always really focused on real food as being the primary, most important thing about nutrition. So I call myself a real food dietitian, nutritionist. And I work primarily with people actually during in online programs and have a variety of options there. But as an athlete myself, as an endurance athlete myself, and then a nutritionist, I've been lucky and thankful that I've been able to combine those two things and make it really my career.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also coach mountain biking up there, right?
Yes, I do. I run the junior program for a business called Summit Endurance Academy, and I also coach for VITA, which is a all women's based skills clinic that happens throughout Colorado and Arizona. And so we run women's skills clinics.
Yeah, so all you mountain bikers out there who want to get some more skills,
Mhm.
I need some more. I need to come to one of your clinics because I always joke that I'm a NASCAR driver when I'm on my mountain bike. Like I'm really good at left-hand turns, but the right-hand switchbacks get me
Oh, yeah.
every time. I don't know what it is. So not every time, but a lot of times.
It's
So
it's amazing what these clinics do. It's just like these aha moments that these women have during these clinics is the best thing ever. And I started out, I was a participant at one of those clinics, I think my second year mountain biking, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it took my biking to an entirely new level. And I'm like, I want to be a part of this.
yeah.
So that's how I ended up being a coach.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
I always I'm like I need to go to a skills clinic. I need to, but you know, it's hard to do that sometimes. But
absolutely.
maybe this year is my year. So,
Yes.
uh, so part of what I love about your approach, because I definitely like I work with some other programs and I've definitely done a lot of like I'm not a nutritionist obviously, but I love clean eating, healthy eating. I do a lot of stuff. I I'm not totally vegan because I eat eggs and some fish and things like that, but I definitely try and eat mostly a plant-based diet and
Mhm.
getting a lot of just like healthy foods in there. And so what I love about the programs that you do and like the recipes that you share and stuff like that is that they're all like normal ingredients. Like when you look at your recipes, you're like, oh, I have all that stuff in my, or like, I know what spinach is. I know what black
Yeah.
beans are. Like, it's not these like Frankenfoods that you're looking at when you look at the package and you're like, what are all these ingredients in this food that I'm getting ready to eat? So I think that's really cool that you do, that's what your focus is.
Yeah, just keep it simple. I mean, there's these simple foods that can be easy for most people to find in their local grocery store without having to order a bunch of things off of Amazon or any special websites and all that kind of stuff, So simple is always probably the best answer. And that's what a lot of times my answer when people ask me, like, what's the best protein powder? What's the best, whatever, cracker, prepackaged food or whatever. I'm like, well, look at the ingredient list. And if you can pronounce all the ingredients on there, or if you know what all the ingredients are, then that's probably the best one. Because that is what your body is going to recognize as food too.
Totally. Yeah. Like I have, I just discovered these lentil, I don't eat it. We don't eat a ton of pasta, but I just discovered these lentil noodles, and seriously, the only ingredient on the side is lentils. I was like, oh, I can eat those. That's basically just like, they just like, I think powdered them down and made them in a different shape and call them noodles. And it's like, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah. That's so great.
Well, and part of what I love about nutrition in general, and I mean, I've been a big proponent of eating healthy for a long time. And it also, for me, it all started because I did an exchange program in college in Sweden, and in Sweden, like everything over there is organic. And and so you go to the grocery store and they don't have a ton of prepackaged things, and you're just eating like normal food. And that was the first time I really learned how to cook. And when I came back to the States after being in Sweden for like 6 months, I remember going to, I think it was like Wendy's, might have been Bojangles. For those of you from the South, you might know Bojangles fried chicken and biscuits, but so delicious and so like not good for your stomach. But and I can remember laying on my couch for like 4 hours afterwards with this horrible stomach ache, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And eventually I started realizing that it was my diet, and that there were certain things that every time I would eat them, whether it be like super greasy fast food or, some of these things that are like pretty far on the like bad food spectrum, or even now, like now that I've gotten to the point where I have been eating really clean for probably about a decade, I do notice when I eat some of these junk foods, like how it impacts my body. And so I think what's really cool about nutrition is that it's not just your physical body that's impacting. It impacts, like for me, it impacts my mood. It impacts my energy levels. Like I can tell when I've had something to eat that doesn't sit well with me, that like the next day I wake up and I'm just like groggy and I don't have a lot of focus. So is that something that you work with your athletes, with your active humans?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Often it is, mood and energy is something that as soon as we switch to more real food, mood and energy instantly change. Like I have people that come to me and they're like, I just can't complete my workouts, or I feel horrible on my long or intense workouts, or I finish a workout and I just can't recover. Like I have to put my feet up, or I feel horrible for the rest of the day. And I, I have a hard time at work if I have a hard workout and all that kind of stuff. And as soon as we start eating enough to fuel that, and also eating the right kinds of foods, whether it's getting down to the macronutrients for specific types of recovery, or whether it's just kind of getting rid of these processed foods and these not so real foods and adding in more real foods, it's huge what it does for people's energy and for their mood.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this secondary bonus.
Well, and there's a lot of stuff out there now that's showing like the gut brain reaction. And I know that there's even research that I've seen where they're using probiotics and things like that to help get the gut back in balance. And it's helping with, anxiety. People are getting off anxiety meds. People are getting off of depression medication. But once they get their gut in balance and they start eating and changing their diet. So I think that's it's just cool how it's all interconnected.
Right.
And I know we've talked too about, cause are you still racing mountain bikes some?
A little bit, mostly just kind of riding for myself, not racing this year. Like I was supposed to do the Breck Epic this year and that got canceled. And
but I know like all of it for me is so connected. If I eat something good in the morning and then I go out on a bike ride, it's funny how like I end up in this kind of like meditative, like mindful state when I'm on my bike, because I'll be like, my body feels good and I get in the zone and I like start getting like all these like fun, creative ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, I'm a yoga teacher. So I think a lot of people assume that mindfulness and meditation and some of that it can only happen like on your yoga mat, or if you're actively
Sitting there.
yeah, like sitting there.
Yep.
And we've talked about this. We talked about this a little bit before we hopped on this call, just about like that our mountain bike is like our happy place. And so can you talk a little bit about just some of the like mood and energy and all that, the benefits of physical activity? Because I think that we all know this intuitively, but I mean, just from a nutritionist standpoint, like a whole body perspective, like what are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's the responses to physical activity, you know, the endorphins and everything. It's like that runner's high that we can get from physical activity, which is pretty incredible.
I have never gotten that from running, by the way. I hate running. I hate running. I get it from biking, but like, like running, I'm like, oh, when is this going to be over?
Yeah.
Why do people do this? This is terrible.
I think it's just from like, you know, putting in the sweat, whatever it is, or putting in the physical activity and the movement, whatever it is, whether it's a 50-mile bike ride or whether it's a mile-long walk around your neighborhood. You know, it really depends on what your baseline is. And for people that are just starting out to you know, ride bikes or to just to be active from whatever their baseline is, like going that first mile or 2 miles is going to be so much better than saying, I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Or like having these fears about starting because everyone else around you is already doing 25 miles or whatever it is. So, gosh, I mean, the thing with mountain biking for me is, you know, like there's this mental aspect of having to pay attention to the features and the terrain and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, Jamie, like you get into kind of this zone where if your body is feeling good because of the food you're eating, you don't have to worry about how your stomach is cramping or how you feel bloated because you just ate a bunch of crappy food before your ride or the wrong type of food. So good nutrition totally takes that out of the picture. And then you have the time and the mental energy to kind of focus on other things that are more important, like just getting into the groove and giving yourself just a little bit of time to reset and not have to think about anything else other than what's right in front of you or what's coming up next, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. And I think too, like the ability, like my motivation levels go up when I'm like, when I'm eating well and I'm like not drinking and I'm, you know, I wake up in the morning, it's like, I don't feel like crap because I've been like putting a bunch of alcohol in my system or putting a bunch of like sugar or a bunch of other stuff that makes me feel like crap. I wake up in the morning and I'm so much more motivated to ride. I can get out of the house early. I'm on the trail long before it gets really hot and before all the crowds get out there. And it just makes it like such a more pleasant and enjoyable experience.
I mean, people talk about, you know, like if you can set your bed, the first thing that you do when you get out of bed is set your bed so you start your day with one win. Same goes for breakfast. If you can start your day with some real food and just a really great breakfast, that's one win that's going to give you the trajectory to continue throughout the day and feel really good and, you know, like want to go outside and go for that walk or go for that ride or sit on the mat and do that yoga session.
All right, you guys, we had to pause the recording because my family decided they are going to come into the room with us and start being loud. So sorry about that, Uri.
Okay.
But like, you guys, this is like pandemic life, right? Like we all just have to adjust to everything that's going on. We have a family member whose birthday, I think it's his 70th birthday is today. So they were having a little like Zoom phone call. So anyway, with the whole family. Yeah. So it was not quiet at all. So what are some of your, like, do you have favorite foods that you like to eat on the trail? Do you have like some secrets that you can give us of like things that you really like good snacks to have around, like whether you're somebody who is, like you said, going to take a yoga class, which the yoga studios are finally opening up down here again, which is nice. But whether, they're going to take a yoga class or going on like a big hike for the day or going on a bike ride, or just what are some of your favorite, because I have my favorite things, like my typical go-tos are walnuts and apple slices, or I'll get one of the Justin's nut butter, like almond butter packets, which I love. Although don't love that they have palm oil in them, because that can be often not great. But yeah, I like those a lot.
Yeah.
So what are some of your other go-tos that you do for snacking?
So one of my favorite go-tos these days has been just making a loaf of banana bread and putting that, once it's done cooking or baking, cut it up into individual slices and stick that in the freezer so that you can pull it out the night before your workout and have it ready to go. But I love it because, number one, banana bread has a really high moisture content. And a lot of these bars and these prepackaged things don't have a high moisture content, which makes them really hard to chew, especially when we're working at higher intensities. And they're just, like you have to take a swig of water after every single bite, which is going to make it more difficult to consume when you're on the go, when you're running or when you're biking or whatever it is, because you're basically just spending more time chewing and losing breath, right? So banana bread, like lemon poppy seed bread, zucchini bread, if you can make a loaf of that, or just go to your favorite local bakery and grab a piece of that, that is great. And it's super tasty because it's homemade and it hasn't been sitting on the shelf for who knows how long. And then my other suggestion is to bring salty foods, because a lot of the foods that we bring with us when we're thinking about exercise foods is we're thinking about, like sugar and carbohydrates and sweet foods. And it's really easy to get flavor fatigue and just kind of get overwhelmed by those sweet foods. And our gut can actually get overwhelmed by those sweet foods too, because there's only so many transporters for certain sugars in our gut. And when that system gets overwhelmed, it's just going to back up in our stomach, and it's going to cause gut rot and digestive distress and things like that. So what I'm always thinking about is, like, can you bring pretzels or even like peanut butter stuffed pretzels? Those are another one of my favorite ones. Or just anything that's salty, even if it's like a salty baked good from your local bakery, is a great one.
Yeah. I always have potato chips back at the car when I'm going on doing something, because I know that I'm going to want the salty food when I get back to the car.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I usually have that. And I think that's probably why I like, like almond butter, peanut butter, that kind of stuff. It has that kind of sweet, salty profile. So it's not quite as, like you said, like sugar. That. Yeah. It's not that pure sugar that we often get. So, but I never thought about like taking banana bread or something like that.
Yeah, it's so delicious. It'll be, it's just so much more enjoyable,
Yeah, I'm laughing because I remember biking one time, and a friend of mine, my friend Lauren, she lives in Crested Butte now, and she like bust out like a piece of, like, it's this whole like half a steak that she had left over from dinner the night before. And she's just like eating raw steak, or not raw steak, but like not, like room temperature steak on the trail. But she's like, what? It's just like jerky, but fresh. We were like, I know. I was like, well, there you get some protein and some salt and whatever. Well, it works, right? That's awesome. So for those of you that are interested in learning a little bit more about Uri, or just getting some more of her tips and tricks and recipes, she offers all sorts of things. I know you do like online workshops and classes sometimes. She is giving everybody who's watching this video, there will be a discount code in the comments of this video when we post it. And so there's a discount code for her ebook. And I think in your ebook, I feel like I've seen it, but you have a bunch of recipes and tips and stuff in there, correct?
Yeah. So it's this resource that I created, when we kind of started the whole quarantine, and I wanted to be something that just people could go to basically as a starting point for all of the most essential nutrition information. And I built it based on all of the work that I've done with my one-on-one clients in addition to my group clients, but it's the content that I find myself sharing over and over and over again, because it's the most helpful content that comes from the most frequently asked questions that I get from my clients. no matter what level they're coming to me from. So it's like a serving size cheat sheet, a pantry stocking guide, so that you can, go to the grocery store once a week and be sure that you have everything. It has meal building guidelines. So there's one meal building guidelines, and it's just a formula of how to think about building your meals. And there's one that's standard, and then there's one that's for weight loss. And it talks about how you kind of change your approach to building meals based on what your goals are. And then it gives you lists of like, okay, these are the proteins, these are the carbohydrates, these are the healthy fats, all that kind of stuff. It has airport travel and road trip travel hacks. So kind of things like if you're on a road trip and you don't want to stop at White Castle, because that's the only thing, what can you grab at the grocery store that's going to make you feel good, even though you're sitting on your bum for 8 hours a day, traveling across the country or whatever it is. There's tons of recipes. I think there's over 40 recipes in there. There's tons of different stuff. But the link that goes to the ebook page, people can see kind of everything that's included and get a little bit of a sneak peek on what it is. And I think it's a 24, 25 pages worth of content.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And so we're getting a discount, you guys. So the discount is only good through the end of this wellness challenge though, which is going to be, so like midnight Friday basically is when I think the link or the coupon code will go away. So make sure that if you are interested in downloading that you do that sooner than later, like do it right now so that you don't forget, because if you're like me, you'll stop watching the video. You'll be like, I'll do that later. And then Saturday rolls around and you're like, oh man, I could have gotten a discount if I had just done it now. So do that now. And I know that you also do like some group coaching programs. I think Uri mentioned that earlier. So, if you're interested in any of that stuff, check out her website. We'll have that on there, but it's Inner Wild Nutrition is her business name. So you can also Google it or just Google her. Yeah. And we'll put all that contact information in there. So I just am so excited that you decided to do this today, because it's just fun to like, I totally nerd out about food. I joke that like, it's partly because I'm from the South, like food is our love language. A lot of times in the South, like we like to feed people when they're sad and lonely. So, but yeah, I also joke that like avocado, like if you are what you eat, then you're going to be an avocado. Like I would be an avocado because I love them so much. So
that's great.
Yeah. I go through like a Costco bag of avocados in a week. It's pretty crazy. I love them. So anyway, you guys, this is just so awesome. I'm glad that things are starting to melt up there in Breck and you're able to get out a little bit more, and check Uri out, you guys. She's pretty freaking awesome. So thanks for being here, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jamie. One other thing that I'll say is that I do post a lot of free content and recipes and fun stuff on my Instagram page. So if anyone wants to follow around there, it's on my list to do. I do food audits every once in a while, and I actually need to do that. But you tell me what you've been eating for a meal or a post-workout snack or something like that, and I'll give you guys feedback. So that's a fun place to kind of get like some just standard free nutrition content.
Yeah, I've stolen several of your posts and repurposed them and shared them on my Instagram page, just because I love to share recipes. And I know there was one you did at the beginning of quarantine that had like good foods to buy that have a long shelf life. So that you don't have to go to the grocery store. So I think I shared that one on my Instagram page too, just because it's good content. It's good stuff to have.
Simple stuff, but it's helpful.
And good stuff like, for camping. That's also a good one. As we start to get back out into the woods, we want stuff like if you're out there for a few days, you don't want stuff that when it sits in your car, that it goes bad. So anyway, well, thanks for being here, and I will talk to you soon, and everybody else have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Uri.